Hey Mike, quick question. Routine client calls and subcontractor check-ins pull you off site and into your phone. That back and forth eats into build days and creates evening catch-up time. What if those routine calls got handled automatically? So you're only on the phone for the important decisions and your crew keeps moving. We've helped small builders reclaim about 4 to 6 hours a week and avoid missed updates. Shall we run a free AI discovery to map where voice AI can pick up the phone for you? Let's grab 15 minutes Tuesday morning or Thursday afternoon. I'll send you a calendar link.
That entire voice memo was just generated by Elevenlabs in under 10 seconds. And we were able to go through it and do it for over 100 different leads, hyper-personalized, all on autopilot. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to extract leads for $1.50 per 1,000 leads. That means it's only $0.0001 per record. We're also going to show you how to generate the voiceover script with Elevenlabs and the alternative methods that are 20 times cheaper, so that you can go through and extract every single lead, personalize message, and generate the voiceover on autopilot and at scale. I'm going to walk you through step by step. Firstly, extracting the leads from a platform called Apify for $1.50 per 1,000 leads. Then we're going to go through and personalize each message using AI to get it really fine-tuned. And then last but not least, how you can bring that script to life that you can fully personalize to each client and your own business to reach out at scale. Imagine sending 1,000 hyper-personalized emails, voice notes, and LinkedIn messages, but that's exactly what this workflow does. And if you want to get access to this blueprint straight away, make sure to come across to our community, join lots of other people building and using AI, and then just come down to YouTube builds and resources, and you'll get access to this one plus hundreds of other ones we've already generated. So first, let's run through a quick demo of how our process works. First of all, we're going to be getting leads. So we're going to listen in the background with our webhook. We're going to come across to our Airtable. I've just got an example here saying that we're looking for founders, C-suite, and owners. We want 100 leads to come back. They need to be located in the US, and they need to have between 21 and 50 employees. We're also saying that we want a law practice to be used as well. We're going to press Get Leads. This is going to start our process on autopilot. As you can see here, we've captured that request within our webhook. If we come out of here, it's then updated the status to be in progress, and it's extracted all of those details that we just specified, like our law practice, US, and much, much more. We're then going to go through and say, does the Apify JSON already exist? Which is the other way that you can do it by pasting the raw JSON in here. And I'll show you where to get that in a second. We're then going to be coming through, triggering a request to format all of the different seniorities. Then we're going to use our lead extractor from Apify to extract those hundreds different leads in this use case. Again, fully personalized for each one. Then we're going to go through and store all of these in Airtable. So if I come across, as we can see down here, we're adding more and more and more by the second. Once this is finished, we're then going to simply go through and update the status of our request, which as we should see here is now done. So now we've got over 100 different leads that we've been able to extract incredibly quickly on autopilot. We've got emails, phone numbers, job titles, LinkedIn, company websites, and much, much more. We're going to come across and just check that they actually exist. So we're going to click on this individual's LinkedIn and just check that it's actually real. Yep. We've got a real one here that we can see. If I close that down, now we'll come across and just check someone else's website exists as well. Yep, there we go. So we know that we can extract lots of different ones. And then last but not least, let's just check another random one for their company LinkedIn as well. And as we can see here, we've got that too. So we know that we've got all of their different profiles across their personal, the company, and the website as well. So now we can go through and start personalizing our messaging. So if we come back across, we're going to trigger our second request here, which will just come across to requests. Make sure that we're listening for this process in the background, personalize the messages, and now it's going to start going through. And for those 100 leads that we've just extracted, start writing hyper-personalized messages for each one. You can fully tailor this to your needs. For example, I've just put some placeholders in here. You would update this to be your company details and what you're currently offering for that market. If we come out of here, You then go through and update all of the different prompts that we've got in here to get it hyper personalized and hyper dialed in to your specific lead and offering for that niche. Now it's going to go through, personalize all 100 messages, and then start storing them back in Airtable. So there we go. It's just personalize all of the leads, and now we're going through one by one and storing them all in here. And again, this is just the start. You'll be able to go through and fully personalize the messaging, how it sounds, how you go through and improve these for your offer, what it says to each client, the script that we're going to be generating, and much, much more. And this is just the start. So for example, here we got high mark. So quick question, do you take routine intake and status calls, pulling you away from court, strategy client for that law firm? Again, you could go through and really personalize these with our AI agent prompt in here and the ability to change your company offering. So now we've gone through and stored all of this. Now we need to go through and actually generate the voiceover. So what we're going to do is come into here. We're going to come across to our requests. We're now going to make sure that our bottom one is triggering. In this use case, I've just put a limiter in here just to go through and do 5, but you would basically remove that and it will process all of the ones. So if we come back to here, so now if we press Elevenlabs voiceover, it's going to start going through exactly the same as before. And as we can see here, it's now going through generating those text to speech with Elevenlabs incredibly quickly. And we've just gone through and stored it in our data table here as well. So let's open it up and give it a listen. So this one here is going to be for Jeffrey, and it looks like they're doing Formidable Days, California Firm, and a few other things. Their company is Zelm Elric Loknovich by the sound of it, so let's give it a listen.
Hey Jeffrey, quick thought. Intake and routine status calls probably eat into your partner's billable.
So as we can see there, incredibly good, and you could put your own, voice with that, custom voice with it, and you can fully change how fast that agent speaks. As you can see here, I've got it a bit faster at 1.2, but you could completely change this to your specific use case. So now we've seen example output and how this works. Let's dive into the specifics of how we would do this ourselves. But first, what are the different platforms we're going to be using? Well, firstly, we'll use n8n to automate the entire process. It's a fantastic platform that's coming up incredibly fast in the market and definitely a great go-to one for your automation needs. You can connect into over 500 different apps and much more. We're also going to be using Apify, which is a great data scraping platform for us to be able to get all of the leads. But let me know if there's anything else you want to see, because we can scrape data from Instagram, Google Maps, Amazon, and much more. And then last but not least, we're also going to be using Elevenlabs to generate that voiceover. So let's go through how our process works. So first things first, we need to come through and extract the leads. So to do this, what we want is an Airtable with all of our request details, and you may want to just give the raw JSON in here, which we can definitely do, or you can specify all the different points in here. Again, you'll be able to duplicate this if you join the community and access all the resources. In here, we've got the button, and we've specified the webhook URL in here. Now, what this means is it's telling, in this use case, Airtable where to send the data, and this is the destination. It's going to go to our n8n environment. We're also saying we want that record ID for that specific row to be passed across. The reason this is important is because that's going to share all of the details in this row. So just to show you, if I do get leads, and we just come back across and make sure this step is listening, we'll just re-execute that. Now we'll see that workflow has started, and in our Airtable, in our n8n, we've got in here that ID being shared across. If you've never worked with webhooks before, you just need to do a plus and webhook. Then as you can see here, it's going to give you a test URL, which is great if we're doing some testing, or if you've deployed this in real time, you can use the production URL as well, just to make sure it's constantly running in the background. So the minute that you press the button, it will go off and extract the leads. If we come out of here, what we're then doing is using an Airtable node. So we want to do Airtable, and in this use case, we're doing update a record. So we need to make sure that we specify the base. In this use case, our base is Elevenlabs personalized lead gen. So we do 11 and then labs, and then personalized lead gen in here. It's going to show us that we've got two different tables, which are requests and client list. And that's going to be this one with the requests and this one with all of our client leads. So what we're doing is we're first of all updating that status in our requests table. So this first one here to go from not activated to in progress. So if we come across, as we can see here, we're putting across our query ID from the left that we've just passed across for that specific row. And we're saying we want you to update the status to in progress. If you've never connected Airtable before, we walk you through in our setup modules as well as Launchpad how you can do this yourself nice and easily. Essentially, you need to come down to Builders Hub and then go through and create a new custom token with all of the different scopes and resources, i.e. bases that you wanted to have access to. If we come back across, what we'll then see is if I just do execute step, our status is now going to go to in progress on autopilot. Then we want to go through and we're using an if statement here, which is a logic expression, which is going to say if the Apify JSON, which is this column here, does exist, then we're going to go through to this node here and paste that raw JSON in. If it doesn't exist though, we're going to go through and just format some of the data for us to process it. In this code here, we're going to be formatting all of the seniorities into a stringified text. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, by nature, this is in an array format, which doesn't give us the little quotation marks like you can see here when we try and pass it into Apify. So what we're doing is we're basically flattening that array into pure text. So as we can see here, it formats it correctly for our request. This is really good if you then go through, for example, and change to have multiple different company sizes or different locations. You just need to update the code in here so it flattens all of those arrays into pure text. We're then coming through to Apify. Now, if you've not set this up before, when you do Apify in the top right, you may not see this node appear. The reason for that is because you need to come down to your settings, into your community nodes, and make sure that you install this Apify n8n community node. And if you've not used this before, I've got an entire video in the community, which I'll include linked down below so that you can walk through and get it set up nice and easily. So we're going to come back across. We've got our node installed to process the data. We're going to bring up the execution that we're working through and just see the data we're passing across. So we're going to be doing Apify and then Apify in here, and we're doing run an actor and get dataset. The reason we're using that one is because it's going to trigger the process and provide all of the data back. We're going to need to connect our Apify account, so make sure to come into your console. You then want to come down to your settings in the bottom left. You want to come across to API and integrations and create a new key, and then simply add it in as a new credential. Once you've done that, you'll be able to see all of the different actors you want to use. So as mentioned, we're going to be using an actor. We're going to get the data that comes out, and now we need to choose the actor that we want to use. So for today, we're going to come back up to the Apify store. We're then going to look for lead finder, which is going to be this one here. And then we're simply going to go through and make all of the changes for what we want. You need to make sure that you save this so it's connected to your account. And as you can see here, there's lots of different options that we can use for including data, excluding data, making sure that that email status is verified, any company websites, the size of the company, and much, much more. Once you've specified some of this example data, so for example, adding that in there, adding any different industries, what we're able to do is come up to the top and see JSON. And this is that example JSON that we could then copy, come back across to Airtable, and paste in here if we wanted to get the same exact outputs, rather than adding in all of the different options within the different columns that you can see here. So that's why we've got the two different ways of triggering the process. If I open up this expression, what you'll be able to see is that example data that we're passing across. So we're using everything from our updata record in Airtable. For example, if I get rid of that industry and then we put it across into here, as you can see on the right hand side, one of the features I love about n8n, we can see that example data we'd be passing across. We've specified the different locations, the industries, the email status, the number of leads we want to retrieve. You need to make sure that you're on an Apify paid plan if you want to extract over 100 leads per run. You need to include the seniority level and the size as well. So that's going to make up the body of our JSON, but you just need to go through and add in anything extra from here. So I'd recommend for the first time, going through, specifying a couple of example points of what you want in here, and then using that as the base for the trigger in here. So now, when you go through, I'll just change this to be 10 instead of 100. So we'll just change this to be 10 in here. We're now going to go off and extract those leads automatically with Apify. What we should get back is any second now, those 10 different leads for us to be able to see. We're then going to be using our Airtable node again, but in this use case, we're doing Airtable, and now we're using the create a record instead. The reason for this is because that's going to add a new row into our client's list. But again, you could use something like Google Sheets if you wanted to do that instead. So once this has brought those 10 leads back, we're going to come through, we're going to use the create operation, and we're going to go through and store all of this data. Now, I specified all of the different columns in here, so you just need to choose which ones you want to include, not include, how you want to enrich it, and more. For example, there's different points in here on some of the keywords, the company description in here. You could do some data analysis on their website, their company LinkedIn, and much, much more. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anything you'd love us to build upon for different workflows like this. If we come down here, again, we're passing across all of this different data as simple as pull across from left into the middle, and it goes through and it specifies all of the different data for us to use. The other side is we're adding that request ID, which is going to come from our update a record table. The reason we're doing this is because then we can track all of the leads, for example, on the left here. So all of the ones here that are 7R2. And then if we come to the requests, we can see 7R2. So we can always refer back to those specific requests and how it's we go through and then personalize and generate the voiceover later on. So we go through and we simply store them and then update our status as well. If we come down to the next step, this is where we're going to go through and personalize the outreach. So I'm just going to bring through the previous example that we had that went through and personalized all of these leads. Again, we used a webhook response to go through and capture that record ID, i.e. all of the leads that are associated with this. We're then going to come through, update our status to be in progress. We're going to use a search module, and we're going to be filtering in our client list table based on the request ID. So now we can see here, we've got those 100 leads that we just previously extracted to go through and personalize. If we come out of here, we're then going to be using a filter module to make sure that that LinkedIn exists in this use case, but you could also do the company email or anything else. The reason for this is because, of course, having that personalized outreach on LinkedIn will increase your chances of them becoming a potential client. So we need to make sure we can actually reach out to them. Again, in here, we're just using a simple set node, which in here is just going to be set. And this enables us to hard code some data for us to reference. As we can see here, we've got company details, and I've just put a quick example in here. You'll be able to go through and fully personalize this to your specific details and offering. Remember, the better the input, the better the output with AI, so try and include as much detail in here as possible. For example, we're saying that we're a voice AI solutions offering, and that we're going through and doing a free AI discovery to map where AI could be used in their business. As we can see here, we get that output nice and easily. We're then going through and using a basic LLM module, which is basic LLM chain. We're using a define below, and then we're passing across lots of information. So if I come out of here and we show you what we're doing, what we're using is all of the information that we've just extracted from our retrieve list from Apify earlier on, and then we're just passing it into here for us to use. So again, for example, you'd get rid of this. Make sure that we're using the first name, or for example, this one is full name. And then as you can see on the right hand side, is making sure that we've got all of that data ready for us to go for that personalization later on. So you can include more details, less details, extract more data to do with their LinkedIn, their website, anything like that. Again, let me know in the description if there's anything you want us to showcase. We're then going through and using a hyper-personalized prompting agent to go through and generate that output for us. We're saying about the LinkedIn message, the script guidelines, some best practice, and much, much more. And you'd be able to go through and fully customize this, just basically copy and paste this prompt into ChatGPT and say, please personalize this for how I speak or how I outreach, and then it will go through and update it to your example. We're also making sure that we structure that output so we can store the data nice and easily. So in here, we're turning on require specific output format, and then in here, we're using a structured output parser, which if you've not used it before, do plus structured output parser, and then turn on autofix format. The reason we're using this is because it's going to enable us to get the really good structured output of personalized LinkedIn message and Elevenlabs voiceover in here nice and easily versus just lots and lots of text that we then have to siphon through to actually find the points that we want. The other reason I love the basic LLM modules is because we've also got the choice of all of the different LLMs for us to use. So if you prefer the way that Claude sounds, you could use that. If you prefer Gemini, Mistral, OpenRouter for lots of different ones to choose from, or anything else, you can add that in here nice and easily. For this one, I've just used a simple GPT-5 mini, increased the time out so it's got more of a chance to go through, and it's generating the output for us. We're then going through and using another Airtable node, which is going to update our record. We're going to match based on the one that we retrieved earlier on. So get rid of this, put across that unique row ID, and then it will go through and add in that personalized LinkedIn message from our AI, from our basic LLM. So again, we just pull that across into here, and the same with the Elevenlabs script as well. If we come out of here, once it's gone through and stored all of that, we're then going to go through and again update our status should just be done as well. We've also included lots of elements from the documentation within Elevenlabs to make sure that it includes the correct pauses, tonality, to really get it sounding as natural as possible. So now we're going to get into how we generate those voiceovers. So we'll bring up that previous execution, which as you saw, took a couple of seconds to generate the output. So we'll copy this to editor. There we go. Again, we're using a webhook node to capture that response. We're updating our status to be in progress just as before. We're then coming through and getting the requests, i.e. all of the different leads associated with that request ID. In this use case, I've just added a filter in here to make sure that we're only doing the ones that have an Elevenlabs script. Again, just in case when we were extracting the data earlier on, there wasn't that person's email address added in or their company LinkedIn as well. So that's why it's really important just to go through and really fine tune it into what you want. We're then going through and in this use case, just limiting it to the first 5 items that come through. But if you wanted to personalize all of the data you've extracted, you just need to delete this node and it will go through and process all of the data seamlessly here. So now we can get to the point around generating the voiceover. In the demo, I showed you how to use Elevenlabs, and that's because it's the market-leading voice AI platform at the moment and is really recognized by lots and lots of people for the quality of the voices and the customizability you get with it. We're going to be able to go through into login to make sure that we've got our account connected. We're going to come down to developers, API keys, create a new key and do demo. We're going to do an unrestricted key for this use case, but I recommend coming through and choosing the accesses you actually want to give it. We're going to do create a key. We're going to have our API key here ready to go, but first we need to come back across to our n8n instance, come down to settings, do save just to make sure that we can come through, back to the community nodes, and I also really recommend installing this official community node here. So if you've not done that before, you need to come up to install, paste that in there, understand and install. This will make it much easier to connect in with our Elevenlabs account versus having to do lots of HTTP requests, which are much more complicated to set up. We'll just bring up that previous example we had going through, and we're going to come into our Elevenlabs account. We'll do plus and then 11 labs, as we can see here. We're going to be generating text to speech. We're going to add our API key in here. So come back across, copy, and then just paste into here, and you'll be ready to go. We're also going to choose the different models that we want to use. So as you can see here, I've got my professional voice clones in there as well. So if you wanted to go through and actually make it your own voice, you could do that nice and easily. If I just delete this, I'll show you the one that we've already generated. And what we're doing is from the left-hand side here, with all of the data that we've developed, extracted, and personalized, we're putting across that Elevenlabs script. In here, for the demo, I used Mark for the natural conversations. I did the Turbo V2 to make sure that we got that better quality outputs versus prioritizing, for example, Flash, which is all about the speed of response. We can change the output format and the language code that we wanted it to come back. Now you can come through and personalize how that voice actually sounds. And if you're not sure what this really means, make sure to come back across to your Elevenlabs account. You want to come up to where we've got the voices. So for example, here, we could come down to where we've got Paige. We could listen to her.
She tore her gaze away from her ruined footwear, still very much grieved.
But if we wanted to go through and then use her voice, we'd come to text to speech. On the right hand side, we could then search for Paige. We could add that in there, for example. In this use case, it's one of the more custom voices. So that's where you're going to need to choose the plan you want to be on. But all of the settings I just showed you in here are actually exactly the same as the ones that you can see here. So what I recommend is testing out in your Elevenlabs account quickly, just to get that voiceover really spot on. Copy the settings you're happy with, and then paste them in the bottom here. So for example, if I come back across, where we've got the speed here, I've set it at 1.2, so that matches speed 1.2 here. If I come back across, where we've got stability, so 50%, so for example in here, I put stability at 0.5, and that's how you go through and customize it. It is worth noting, although Elevenlabs is absolutely fantastic, they are the most expensive provider at the moment. I'd also recommend, if you come down to the price, checking out ones such as Inworld TTS Max. I'd include the link down below because they give you incredibly quality output. You can clone your voice, and then 20 times cheaper than Elevenlabs. Let me know in the comments below if you want us to build something out with the Inworld TTS instead. Now I'm going to come back across. As we can see here, we're then getting those MP3 files, as you can see here, coming back. So for us to be able to store them in Airtable, unfortunately we don't have an upload into Airtable node at the moment for any files that we want to use. Instead, we need to do a convert. So we'll do convert from file, and move to base 64 string. What this will do is it will download all of the data on the left here and give us a super long text string here, which basically explains all of the data that sits within that file, how to replicate it and store it in our Airtable. So if we come out of here, we then have to use a HTTP request to actually be able to store all of that data. So you want to do plus HTTP and then add it in there nice and easily. You'll need to get rid of this and then customize it to what you want. So in this use case, if I open it up, we need to make sure that we used this URL to send it through. You'll need to update your app ID, which is going to be, as you can see in here, the same app ID. And you need to make sure, if we close this down, come back to your get requests, remove in here, and just put across that ID. So again, it's telling us where we're storing that data in what specific row. I've then also called the column Elevenlabs voiceover. So if we come into here, come across, we've then got Elevenlabs voiceover. Because there's a space between labs and voiceover, we just need to add in this %20 so we can go through and store all of that data. So once you specify that, make sure to add your API credentials in here just by doing predefined credentials. Then we need to go through and tell it what data we're storing. In this use case, it's an audio MP3 file. All of the file data is what we've just converted from base 64, as you can see there. And then if I just scroll down all the way to the bottom, which is all of the text, we can see here again that file name is just that person's full name and then their company name. So then when you execute this, it's going to store that MP3 file like we can see here on the end for us to use. And if we come out of here, we then simply go through, update our status to be done, and now we've got thousands of hyper-personalized LinkedIn or email messages that we can send, and voiceovers as well to get that increased personalization and conversion that happens as well. If you want to get access to this or learn more about AI and automation, definitely come across to the community. We got lots of great content in there, as well as lots of other people building and learning with AI. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anything else you're interested in, and stay tuned for more around AI, automation, and have a great day.